Hi everyone, it's Tarrant.
And Stella here from Meeple University. Thank you for joining us.
Today we'll be teaching you how to play Potato Pirates into the Spudnet. So hopefully you'll be ready to play this game after watching the video. Stay tuned. Let's learn to play Potato Pirates into the Spudnet. Game designed by Aditya Batura, Johan Ng Zichi, Li Tat Lin, Fendi Leonata, Lim Jiaxuan, Xia Chat Leong, and Wayne Nyo Weiji, and published by Potato Pirates.
If you find value from this video later, please hit the like button, subscribe to us, hit the bell, and leave your feedback in the comments for others to find. For now, let's get to the table.
Enter the Spudnet is a game about seafaring potato delivery services. Each delivery service has 5 orders spread throughout the Spudnet and will work to complete those orders with their ships as quickly as possible. The game has 2 modes, competitive and cooperative. In the competitive mode, players will compete against each other to be the first to complete all 5 of their orders. While in the cooperative mode, players have up to 10 rounds to complete all of their orders without allowing the bot ships to take over the map. In this video, we'll take you through the competitive mode of the game first, and then explain how to play the cooperative. To set up, each player chooses a colour and then takes 6 ships, 5 order tokens, and 2 warehouses in that colour. Each player takes the 5 dice not in their own colour and rolls them. These determine the locations of the player's order tokens. Here, for example, in the teal zone, orange would place the order on 7. Multiple orders can occupy the same node. Each player now sets up their 2 warehouses, placing each onto an empty node in their own coloured zone. Finally, assemble a deck of action cards from the 40 available with the game. The deck will be 12 cards in a 2 or 3 player game, or 18 cards in a 4 to 6 player game. For your first game, use one of the pre-assembled deck recipes that is present in the back of the rulebook. Later on, you can build your own deck, but remove the 6 cards labelled co-op if you do. In this video, we'll start by going through the base rules of the game, which includes anything you need to use the basic action card deck. Choose a starting player for the first round, and you're now ready to play. Enter the Spudnet is played in rounds, and each round is played in 3 phases, with each phase resolved player by player, starting from the start player and going clockwise around the table. First is the draft phase, where each player chooses a new action card to add to hand. Second is the place phase, where each player adds a new ship to each of their warehouses. And third is the action phase, where players may move ships or play action cards in order to try to fulfill orders. There'll then be a brief reset phase before play passes to the next round. So now let's look at each phase in detail. First is the draft phase. The starting player draws a number of cards from the draw deck equal to the number of players in the game plus 1. If the draw deck ever has insufficient cards for the next draft phase, then you'll shuffle the discard pile and put it under the deck. The player looks at these cards and then chooses one to add to hand. A player may never have more than 2 cards in hand at a time. Then the remaining cards are handed to the player on the left. That player does likewise, and then so on around the table, until the last player, who has a choice from 2 cards, putting one in hand, and discarding the other face up. Next comes the place phase. Each player must place 1 ship from their supply onto each of their warehouses on the board, even warehouses already containing 1 or more ships. A player with only 1 ship in supply chooses which of the 2 warehouses to place on, and a player with no ships in supply does nothing. Then comes the action phase. On a turn during the action phase, the player may move each ship on the board up to 2 nodes around the board, and may play any number of action cards from hand. These may be done in any order, but each ship and each action card is resolved in full before moving on to the next action. When you move a ship, you'll move it along the coloured lines to an adjacent node. There are some lines which wrap around the board, allowing you to cover large distances in short times. Since each ship can be moved once, it often helps to start with all the ships standing, and then lay each down after it's taken its 1 or 2 steps of movement. If a ship moves onto a node containing one of your order tokens, then remove both the order and the ship from the board, returning the ship to your supply. If this was your last order token, you immediately win the game. Moving onto or through an opponent's order has no effect. If you move into a non-warehouse node containing any other ship, including your own, then there is a collision, and both ships involved are destroyed and returned to the player's supplies. This is the main way to defend against other players getting too close to their orders. If a collision occurs on a node containing a player's order, then the collision is resolved first. A warehouse node, on the other hand, is allowed to hold up to 3 ships of any colours. But if a 4th ship ever enters a warehouse, it becomes overloaded, resulting in some significant penalties for the owner of that warehouse. And this can be from movement or the mandatory placement in the place phase. When this happens, all ships on that warehouse are destroyed, all ships on that player's other warehouse are destroyed, all ships belonging to that player are destroyed, and a downtime marker is placed on each of those warehouses. These remain until the end of this round, and no ship is allowed to enter or pass through that warehouse while it's in downtime. During this phase, you can also play action cards from your hand by revealing the card, resolving the text, and then discarding the card to the common discard pile. This phase of your turn is the only time that you're allowed to play action cards, unless the action card states, "Play this card anytime," down the bottom. Once you're done moving ships and playing action cards, the action phase passes to the player on your left. Once all players are done, the round is over and you'll clean up for the next round. Any downtime tokens on the board are removed. Any player holding more than 1 action card must discard down to 1. You'll gain 1 per round and you've got to use them or lose them. And unless somebody has played the priority packet card, the first player token rotates to the next player clockwise. You'll continue playing rounds in this way until one player completes all 5 orders to win the game. Those are all the rules you need to know to get started with the basic deck in Enter the Spudnet. But as you start to add some of the more advanced cards, you'll add new components into the game as well as some new rules. These 2 special cards allow the placement of the game's 2 temporary structures, Kraken Security and Downtime. Downtime we've seen before, while Kraken Security can be placed on a ship to protect it. Each temporary structure is removed from the board as part of the end of round cleanup each round. These structure cards all add one of the game's permanent structures to the board when played. In the case of firewalls, each player will have a personal supply of 2 in player colour to use. Once a structure has been placed on the board, it remains there between rounds. It can't be moved until the card has gone back through the deck enough times for all of that building type's tokens to have been placed, at which point each subsequent play of the card allows you to move one of the tokens already on the board. There are a couple of specific rules for some of these structures. The proxy, which is a wooden disc like the warehouses, can be overloaded with 4 ships, which destroys all of those ships and the proxy. And the firewalls, which are pieces in player colour, are lost as part of the penalty that you suffer when one of your warehouses is overloaded. These 3 cards have special structure types which are added onto an existing warehouse, excluding a warehouse in downtime. These remain in place until the condition described on the card is met, until that warehouse is overloaded, in which case it is destroyed along with the normal penalties, or like any other structure, when there are no tokens left in the supply and the card comes back through the deck. Finally, there are the bot cards, and although these are your enemy in the cooperative mode, you can also use them to interfere with your opponents in the competitive mode. In competitive play, you'll use only 10 of the 20 bot ships that come with the game. Bot ships fundamentally get in your way. The different cards will allow you to place bot ships on the board. perhaps even converting player ships to bot ships, or may let you move those ships around. Multiple bot ships can occupy the same node without colliding, although a single player ship can destroy multiple bot ships in one collision. But otherwise, bot ships follow all the same rules as normal ships. They can cause overcrowding in warehouses, they're restricted by the same rules as structures on the board, and they may be targeted by any card which targets a ship, unless that card specifically refers to a player's ship. In the cooperative mode, players will be working together to try to complete all of their own orders, while also watching out for the bot ships and bot warehouses which are setting up around the board. Players will have 10 rounds to win the game, but need to be careful not to run out of places for bot warehouses or bot ships. In this mode, you'll use the 6 differently coloured bot warehouses, all 20 of the bot ships, and your 12 or 18 card deck will include some or all of the co-op cards. After finishing the steps for competitive setup, each player rolls a die and then places their colour of bot warehouse onto the matching numbered node. If you roll the same node as your player warehouse, then roll again, noting that the bot warehouse can share a node with an order. Then roll a die and put a bot ship on each matching numbered node. You're now ready to play. The sequence of play is slightly different. The first step in each round is the place phase, where players will place new ships on their warehouses. Then comes the action phase. In turn order, you'll start by drawing one card. You don't draft in the cooperative game. If the card says play this card immediately, which is usually the bad cooperative cards, then you must resolve it. Otherwise, add the card to your hand as normal. The rest of your actions phase follows the same way it would in the competitive game. Once all players have finished their action phase, you then go to the Infect phase, where the bots will attack. Firstly, every bot ship that is not on a player warehouse will move. Bot ships within 3 nodes of a honeypot, if it's been placed, will move one step towards that honeypot. Honeypots help to lure bot ships away from player warehouses, and they function like warehouses for the purposes of overloading. Otherwise, the ship moves towards the closest player warehouse. If tied, as it is here, there are 3 player warehouses within 2 nodes, then move towards the warehouse with the most total ships on it. Here it's 2 to 1 to 1. If it's still tied, it will go to where there are more bot ships. If still tied, then the route with more player orders along the way. If still tied, then the route with more player ships along the way. If still tied, it stays in its current zone. And finally, if still tied, the players get to choose. Bots that collide with player ships will destroy both ships, however, wait until you've completed all bot ship movements before resolving collisions. In this case, both of them collide with blue. Next, place a new warehouse. Roll the dice for the unplaced warehouses to determine which one you'll place, rolling again if there's a player warehouse there. Finally, place a new bot ship onto every bot warehouse. This is the last step of the round, so advance the round marker and give the first player token 1 step clockwise. The overloading of warehouses becomes a much more critical part of the game than it does in the competitive mode, and it works slightly differently. Both a player or a bot warehouse becomes overloaded when there are 4 or more ships on it. An entire bot movement phase would be resolved before checking for overloading, meaning you could have more than 4 ships. Any overloaded warehouse is destroyed, as well as all of the ships on it. The bot's warehouse can be placed again in a future warehouse placement step, while the player's warehouse is gone forever. There's no other penalty for a player whose warehouse is destroyed. The cooperative game can be lost in 5 different ways. If, when the time comes to place a new bot warehouse, there are no bot warehouses left. If, when the time comes to place a new bot ship, there are no ships left. If both warehouses of a player who is yet to fulfill all 5 orders are destroyed. if a bot warehouse containing a player's order is destroyed without that player fulfilling it, or at the end of the 10th round of play if the players are yet to win. If all players can complete all 5 orders before any of these loss conditions occur, then the players win the game. Enter the Spudnet is a game which is set in the world of potato shipping, but the game is an allegory for cybersecurity. The game is meant to represent the challenges of sending packets of data around the world safely, and this section of the rulebook will explain how each cybersecurity concept is represented in the game. And that's how to play Potato Pirates Enter the Spudnet. We hope you enjoyed this video.
If you find this video useful, please help us by hitting the like button. Subscribe to us. You can also hit the meeple in the corner to do so, and hit the bell icon so you'll know when we have new videos. You can also follow me on Instagram for my board games journey.
If you have any questions, comments or suggestions, those are all welcome and please put them in the comment section below.
See you next time!